The massive crystal towers of the Galactic Council stretched toward the stars, their surfaces glowing with power that had existed for thousands of years. Inside the main chamber, hundreds of alien beings gathered around a circular platform that floated in the center of the room. Ambassador Veltar stepped through a shimmering portal, his tall blue body moving with the confidence of someone who had never been told no. His 4 golden eyes scanned the assembled crowd as he walked to the center platform. Behind him came General Krothmok, whose thick gray armor was covered in scars from countless battles across the galaxy. The chamber fell silent as Veltar raised his hands. When he spoke, his voice echoed through the vast space with authority that had brought entire civilizations to their knees. "Fellow council members," he began, "we have a new situation that requires our immediate attention. The species called humans have grown beyond their single world." Elder Nyx Theron, whose ancient purple skin showed the wisdom of 5,000 years, shifted in her floating chair. Her 6 arms moved gracefully as she spoke. "Tell us more about these humans, Ambassador. What makes them different from the other young species we have guided?" Veltar activated a holographic display that showed a spiral arm of the galaxy. Dozens of star systems lit up in bright blue. They now control 47 worlds across 12 different star systems. This expansion happened in less than 200 years. Murmurs rippled through the chamber. Most species took thousands of years to spread beyond their home systems. The speed of human expansion was unusual, but not necessarily threatening. General Krothmok stepped forward, his heavy boots echoing on the crystal floor. "The concerning part is not their speed but their attitude. Our scouts report that humans show no respect for established galactic order. They ignore our territorial boundaries and refuse to acknowledge council authority." "How primitive are their weapons?" asked Commander Zewxnl of the Hegemony Fleet. "Surely they cannot pose any real threat to council forces." "Our intelligence shows basic fusion engines, simple energy shields, and projectile weapons that still use chemical explosives," Veltar replied with a dismissive wave. "Their largest warship is barely 300 meters long. They are like children playing with toys." Elder Nyx Theron nodded slowly. "Then we shall treat them as we treat all young species who need guidance. Send them the standard ultimatum. They will learn to follow galactic law, or they will face the consequences." Meanwhile, millions of light years away on Earth, President Kim Do-hyun stood in the underground command center beneath the capital city. The room buzzed with activity as hundreds of officers monitored communications from across human space. Large screens displayed star maps, ship positions, and diplomatic messages from dozens of alien civilizations. Admiral Park Seo-hyun entered the room, her black uniform crisp and her expression serious. She had spent her entire career preparing for this moment. At 45 years old, she commanded the largest military force humanity had ever assembled, though most of it remained hidden from alien eyes. "Mr. President," she said, saluting quickly, "the long-range sensors have detected the Council's message approaching our communication satellites. It will arrive in approximately 10 minutes. President Kim nodded grimly. For years, human intelligence had been gathering information about the Galactic Council. They knew about the ultimatums, the forced submissions, and the civilizations that had been reduced to puppet states. Humanity had been preparing for this day since the first human colony ship left Earth. "Have all fleet commanders been notified?" the President asked. "Yes, sir. Ghost Fleet Alpha is positioned in the outer asteroid belt. Ghost Fleet Beta is hidden behind the gas giant's moons. Ghost Fleet Gamma maintains position in the Kuiper belt. All ships are running silent and invisible to Council sensors." The communication alert sounded, and the main screen lit up with the image of Ambassador Veltar. His 4 eyes looked directly into the camera with the cold confidence of someone who had delivered this message hundreds of times before. "Greetings, humans of Earth," Veltar began, his voice translated into perfect English by advanced alien technology. "I am Ambassador Veltar, speaking for the Galactic Council that governs all civilized species in this galaxy." President Kim and Admiral Park listened in silence as the alien delivered the ultimatum that had crushed the independence of countless worlds. "Submit to Council authority. Accept limits on technology and expansion. Pay tribute in resources and people. Become another puppet dancing to the Council's tune. You have 30 of your Earth days to respond with your acceptance," Veltar concluded. "Failure to comply will result in corrective action by Council forces. This message is not a negotiation. It is a statement of galactic law." The transmission ended, leaving the command center in complete silence. For several long moments nobody spoke. Then President Kim turned to Admiral Park with a slight smile. Seo-hyun, what exactly do our hidden fleets include? Admiral Park activated her personal display, showing ship counts and weapon specifications that would have shocked the Council's intelligence officers. 2,000 active warships, 15,000 automated defense platforms, and 500 stealth reconnaissance vessels. All equipped with technology the Council has never seen before. And our response to their ultimatum? The same response humans have always given to bullies, Mr. President. We tell them no, and then we show them why that was the wrong question to ask. President Kim looked at the star map showing human colonies spread across dozens of systems. Each one represented millions of people who had left Earth seeking freedom among the stars. They would not become slaves to an alien council that ruled through fear. Send our response, Admiral. Let them know that humanity chooses to remain free. The Great Assembly Hall on Earth hummed with nervous energy as representatives from 47 human worlds gathered for the most important meeting in their species' history. The circular chamber, built deep underground for security, could hold 500 people. Today every seat was filled. President Kim Do-hyun stood at the center podium, looking at faces that reflected both worry and determination. These men and women had traveled across the galaxy to be here. Some had spent weeks in faster-than-light travel just to attend this emergency session. Ladies and gentlemen, President Kim began, 3 days ago, we received an ultimatum from the Galactic Council. They demand our complete surrender. Director Lee Jae-won of the Intelligence Division stood up from her seat in the front row. At 38 years old, she had spent her entire career studying alien civilizations. Her team had been secretly gathering information about the Council for over a decade. Mr. President, if I may address the Assembly, she said, activating her personal data pad. Our intelligence shows that the Council has used this exact same ultimatum on over 300 species in the past 1,000 years. Every single one of those species submitted without a fight. The holographic display above the chamber showed images of various alien worlds. Beautiful cities, advanced technologies, and millions of beings living under Council rule. But Director Lee's next images told a different story. What the Council doesn't advertise is what happens after submission, she continued. Technological development stops. Population growth is controlled. Resources are extracted and sent to Council worlds. These civilizations become nothing more than farms for the Council's benefit. Angry murmurs filled the chamber. Representative Choi Hyun-woo from the mining world of New Seoul slammed his fist on his desk. They want to turn us into slaves. That's exactly what they want, Director Lee confirmed. Their files describe humans as emotionally unstable but technologically inferior. They believe we will panic and surrender just like all the others. Admiral Park Seo-hyun stepped forward, her blue uniform decorated with medals earned in battles against pirates and hostile aliens. She had been secretly preparing for this day since she graduated from the military academy 20 years ago. Representatives, Admiral Park said, her voice carrying the authority of someone who commanded fleets across multiple star systems. The Council has made one critical mistake. They counted our visible ships and assumed that was our entire military. She activated the main holographic display, and gasps echoed through the chamber. The image showed not dozens of ships but thousands. Sleek warships hidden in asteroid fields. Massive defense platforms orbiting dead moons. Manufacturing facilities carved into the cores of lifeless planets. For 8 years we have been building the Ghost Fleet, Admiral Park explained. While the Council watched our patrol ships and mining vessels, we constructed a military force they cannot imagine. The display zoomed in on individual ships. Unlike the boxy, intimidating designs favored by Council races, human vessels were smooth and elegant. Their hulls were covered in advanced stealth materials that made them nearly invisible to sensors. Representative Park Jin-woo from the agricultural world of New Busan raised his hand. Admiral, how many ships are we talking about? 2,000 active warships, Admiral Park replied. 15,000 automated defense platforms. 500 reconnaissance vessels. And manufacturing capacity to build more if needed. The chamber erupted in surprised voices. Many representatives had known that Earth was building up its military, but nobody had imagined the true scale of the project. Captain Young Mi-ho, the youngest fleet commander in human history at only 31 years old, stepped up to the podium. His ship, the destroyer Han River, was currently hidden in the asteroid belt between Mars and Jupiter. Mr. President, Captain Young said, what the Council doesn't understand is that humans have been fighting wars for thousands of years. We've studied every battle, every strategy, every mistake ever made. We know how to fight and we know how to win. Director Lee activated another display showing detailed information about Council military forces. We've been studying them too. Every ship design, every weapon system, every tactical method they use. We know their strengths, but more importantly, we know their weaknesses. The display showed Council battle formations that had remained unchanged for centuries. Their weapons were powerful but predictable. Their ships were large and impressive but slow to maneuver. Most critically, they had become overconfident after centuries of easy victories. They expect us to either surrender immediately or make a desperate, hopeless attack, Admiral Park explained. They have no experience fighting an enemy that actually knows what they're doing. President Kim looked around the chamber at the faces of humanity's leaders. He saw fear, yes, but also something the Council had never encountered in their previous conquests. He saw determination, anger, and the stubborn refusal to bow that had carried humans from caves to the stars. The Council has given us 30 days to surrender, President Kim announced. I propose we give them our answer right now. The vote was unanimous. Not a single representative voted to accept the Council's ultimatum. President Kim activated the long-range communication array that would send humanity's response across the galaxy. The message was simple, direct, and delivered with the quiet confidence of a species that had never learned to kneel. Honored Council members, he said, looking directly into the camera, we have received your ultimatum and given it careful consideration. Earth's response is this: no. We will remain free. The message launched into space, traveling faster than light toward the Council's home systems. At the same time, coded signals went out to every human fleet commander. The Ghost Fleet began moving from their hiding places, taking positions around Earth and the other human worlds. In the depths of space, Captain Young watched his instruments as invisible ships moved like shadows through the solar system. The Council thought they were dealing with primitive humans armed with simple weapons. They were about to learn that some species cannot be conquered, only awakened. The crystal towers of the Galactic Council glowed brighter than usual as emergency alarms echoed through the ancient chambers. Within minutes of receiving humanity's simple one-word response, representatives from hundreds of alien species rushed to their seats in the Great Assembly Hall. Ambassador Veltar stood at his podium, his 4 golden eyes wide with disbelief. In his 300 years of diplomatic service, he had delivered the Council ultimatum to dozens of species. Every single one had accepted immediately, often begging for mercy before he even finished speaking. This is unprecedented, he announced to the gathered crowd. For the first time in recorded history, a species has rejected Council authority. General Krothmok's heavy footsteps echoed through the chamber as he stomped to the center platform. His thick gray armor, decorated with trophies from conquered worlds, caught the crystal light as he turned to address the assembly. Impossible, he roared, slamming his massive fist down so hard that the sound echoed off the distant walls. No species refuses the Council. Not after we show them our power. These humans must be insane. Elder Nyx Theron, her ancient purple skin marked with the wisdom tattoos of 5,000 years, slowly raised one of her 6 arms. The chamber fell silent when she spoke, for her voice carried the authority of someone who had seen the rise and fall of entire civilizations. Perhaps, she said carefully, the humans simply did not understand the message. Young species often have difficulty with complex concepts like galactic law and proper submission. Ambassador Veltar nodded quickly, eager to find a reasonable explanation for this impossible situation. Yes, that must be it. Humans are known for their primitive communication methods. Their languages are filled with confusion and contradiction. They probably misunderstood what we were asking. Then we must educate them, General Krothmok declared, his scarred face showing the cruel smile that had terrified countless worlds. I will take a battle fleet to their home system. When they see our ships blocking out their sun, they will understand very quickly. Commander Ziwaxanel of the Hegemony Fleet leaned forward in his floating chair. How large a force will you need, General? Our intelligence reports show the humans have less than 20 warships total. General Krothmok laughed, a harsh sound that made several smaller species cringe in their seats. 20 ships? I could conquer their entire civilization with a single dreadnought. But we must make an impression. I will take 200 vessels from 15 different species. Let them see the full might of the Council. Elder Nyx Theron consulted the glowing data crystals that floated beside her chair. These ancient devices contain detailed information about every species the Council had encountered over the past 3,000 years. According to our files, she read aloud, human technology is extremely primitive. They use basic fusion engines for propulsion, simple energy shields for protection, and still rely on chemical explosives for their weapons. They have barely progressed beyond atmospheric flight capabilities. The assembly buzzed with amused voices. Several representatives actually laughed at the idea of such backward technology challenging the Council's authority. How long since they left their home planet? Asked Ambassador Thekvar of the Trade Federation. Less than 200 years, Veltar replied. Most species take thousands of years to spread beyond their original system. The humans have expanded quickly, but they have clearly sacrificed technological development for speed. General Krothmok was already planning his demonstration of power. I will position the fleet in their home system and broadcast our demands across all frequencies. When they see 200 warships, each one larger than their entire military combined, they will beg for our forgiveness. The massive war fleet that assembled at the Council's main military base was indeed impressive. Ships from 15 different species formed a formation that stretched across hundreds of kilometers. The smallest vessels were frigate-class ships 500 meters long. The largest were massive dreadnoughts that could destroy entire moons. At the center of the formation flew the flagship Eternal Dominion, General Krothmok's personal command ship. 3 kilometers from front to back, its hull was covered with weapons that could turn continents into glass. The ship had led the conquest of over 50 worlds and had never been seriously challenged in battle. As the fleet prepared to enter hyperspace, General Krothmok addressed his commanders through the communication system that linked all 200 ships. "Fellow warriors," he began, his voice carried to thousands of alien officers across the fleet. "Today we add another species to the Council's great family. Remember, we are not destroyers bringing death. We are teachers bringing wisdom. These humans will learn to follow galactic law, just as all the others have learned." The fleet disappeared into hyperspace, traveling faster than light toward the distant Sol system where humanity waited. Meanwhile, hidden in the asteroid belt between Mars and Jupiter, Lieutenant Commander Choi Yuna watched her instruments from the bridge of the stealth ship Sol Shadow. At 29 years old, she commanded one of humanity's most advanced reconnaissance vessels, invisible to all known sensor types. Her ship was one of 50 similar vessels positioned throughout the solar system, all of them waiting and watching for the Council's arrival. The humans had known this day would come ever since their first contact with alien civilizations 15 years ago. "Contact," her sensor officer announced. Multiple hyperspace signatures detected at the edge of the system. "Looks like a large fleet dropping out of faster-than-light travel." Lieutenant Commander Choi activated her encrypted communication channel, sending a coded message to Earth and every human fleet hidden throughout the solar system. "Admiral Park," she whispered, her voice steady despite the magnitude of what she was seeing. "Council fleet has arrived. 200 ships, just like our intelligence predicted. They're moving toward Earth in standard intimidation formation." Admiral Park's voice came back through the secure channel, calm and deadly as winter ice. "Understood, Yuna. Let them come closer. It's time they learned what humans do to bullies who threaten our families." The Council war fleet dropped out of hyperspace like a moving mountain range. 200 massive ships arranged themselves in perfect formation, their hulls gleaming with the dark metal that had conquered 1,000 worlds. At the front of the formation, the flagship Eternal Dominion stretched 3 kilometers from nose to tail, its weapon ports glowing with deadly energy. General Krothmok stood on the bridge of his flagship, his 4 arms crossed behind his back as he studied the readings on the main display. After 300 years of military service, he had seen this moment dozens of times. First came the show of force, then the terrified surrender, then the integration of another species into the Council's empire. "Scan the system," he ordered his sensor officer. "Show me their pathetic defense fleet." The young alien officer, his green skin pale with nervousness, worked quickly at his station. "Sir, I'm detecting minimal activity throughout the system. 3 small patrol craft near the third planet's orbital stations. 2 mining vessels operating in the asteroid belt. No signs of any major military presence." General Krothmok felt a flicker of disappointment. He had expected at least some resistance, perhaps a brave but doomed charge by their primitive warships. Instead, the system seemed almost empty. "Where is their fleet?" he asked, his voice echoing across the bridge. "Sir, this appears to be their entire military," the sensor officer replied uncertainly. "Perhaps our intelligence was correct about their technological limitations." Ambassador Veltar glided across the bridge on his floating platform, his 4 golden eyes scanning the tactical displays. "General, it appears these humans truly are as primitive as our report suggested. They have no real military to speak of." The massive Council fleet moved deeper into the solar system, their engines creating a light show visible from millions of kilometers away. General Krothmok prepared to broadcast his demands to the human homeworld, expecting immediate surrender. That was when space itself seemed to come alive around them. It started as tiny points of light, like new stars appearing in the darkness. The points grew larger and larger, until they resolved into sleek metallic shapes that seemed to materialize from empty space itself. Human warships, hundreds of them, emerging from invisibility in perfect ambush positions. What is this? General Krothmok roared, his massive fist slamming down on the command console. Where did they come from? The sensor officer's hands flew across his controls, his green skin now completely white with shock. Sir, I'm reading massive energy signatures throughout the system. Ships are appearing everywhere. How is this possible? On the bridge of the human stealth battleship Soul's Pride, Commander Han Ji-hun watched the chaos spreading through the Council fleet with quiet satisfaction. At 35 years old, he had spent his entire career preparing for this moment. His ship was one of the most advanced vessels humanity had ever built, invisible to every known type of sensor. All units, he spoke calmly into his communication system. This is Ghostwatch Command. Operation Surprise Party is now active. Remember your orders. We are not here to destroy them. We are here to teach them a very important lesson. Around the solar system, hundreds of human ships received the signal and began moving into attack positions. Unlike the massive, intimidating designs favored by Council species, human vessels were sleek and elegant. Their hulls were covered with advanced materials that bent light and sensor beams around them, making them nearly impossible to detect. Admiral Park Seo-hyun's voice suddenly cut through every communication frequency in the system, including the Council's own private channels. Her words reached every ship in both fleets simultaneously. Council fleet, she said, her voice calm and professional, you are now surrounded by superior forces using technology you do not understand. You have 30 seconds to power down all weapons and prepare for escort duty, or we will demonstrate why humans do not make good slaves. On the bridge of the Eternal Dominion, complete chaos erupted. Alarm bells rang throughout the massive ship as sensor operators shouted impossible readings. Weapons officers frantically tried to target the human vessels, only to find their computers infected with elegant viruses that turned their own systems against them. How many ships are we facing? General Krothmok demanded, his voice cracking with the first fear he had felt in centuries. 800 confirmed contacts, the sensor officer screamed. No, wait, 900. Sir, I cannot get an accurate count. They are using some kind of adaptive camouflage system. Our sensors cannot lock onto them properly. Throughout the Council fleet, similar scenes played out on every bridge. Weapons systems failed. Navigation computers displayed nonsense. Communication arrays broadcast strange music instead of orders. The humans had not only surrounded them, they had taken control of their technology. Captain Song Nari commanded the human destroyer Incheon Lightning from her position hidden behind one of Jupiter's moons. At 28 years old, she was one of humanity's youngest ship commanders, but her vessel carried weapons that could punch through the armor of ships 10 times its size. Look at them scramble, she said to her tactical officer, watching the Council ships try desperately to target human vessels that appeared and disappeared like ghosts. They have relied on size and intimidation for so long, they forgot how to actually fight. Her ship's computers had already identified the weak points in every Council vessel. Human engineers had studied alien ship designs for years, looking for flaws and vulnerabilities. They knew exactly where to strike for maximum effect with minimum damage. Captain, her weapons officer reported, all targeting solutions are locked in. We can disable their entire fleet without destroying a single ship. Captain Song smiled as she watched the mighty Council fleet flailing helplessly in space, surrounded by enemies they could barely detect and could not fight. Then let's show them what human engineering can accomplish when we are properly motivated, she said. The lesson was about to begin. The space battle that would change galactic history lasted exactly 17 minutes and 34 seconds. When the weapons fell silent, the mighty Council fleet floated helplessly in space like broken toys, their engines dead and their weapon systems completely disabled. General Krothmok sat in his command chair aboard the Eternal Dominion, staring at instrument readings that made no sense. His massive warship, which had conquered 50 worlds, was now as powerless as a piece of space debris. Every weapon was offline. The engines would not respond. Even the lights flickered uncertainly. Report, he barked at his bridge crew, his voice cracking with confusion and growing fear. Sir, his weapons officer replied, his hands shaking as he worked at his controls, All systems are non-functional. We have no weapons, no engines, no long-range communications. But the ship is undamaged. I don't understand how this is possible. Around them, the space that had seemed empty just minutes before now swarmed with human vessels. Sleek ships moved with the grace of hunting predators, their hulls gleaming with technology the Council had never imagined. They surrounded every Council vessel without firing a single destructive shot. A holographic image suddenly appeared on the bridge, causing several Council officers to jump back in surprise. The figure was a human woman in a blue military uniform, her expression calm and professional. This was Admiral Park Seo-hyun, commander of the human fleet. "General Krothmok," she said, her voice carrying the quiet authority of someone who had just accomplished the impossible. "I am Admiral Park of the Human Defense Force. Your fleet has been disabled but not destroyed. Your crew is unharmed." General Krothmok stared at the hologram, his mind struggling to accept what had happened. "This is impossible," he whispered. "We are the Galactic Council. We have ruled this galaxy for 3,000 years. No species can defeat us." Admiral Park's expression remained calm. "General, you ruled because no one showed you there was another way to live. Today that changes." Throughout the solar system, human boarding parties were already moving to secure the disabled Council ships. Major Im Chanwoo led a team of Marines aboard a Drakmar battleship, their movements quick and efficient. Unlike the Council's brutal conquest methods, the humans treated their defeated enemies with professional courtesy. "Secure all weapons," Major Im ordered his soldiers. "Medical teams check for injuries. Treat any wounded Council personnel immediately." The Council crews watched in amazement as human soldiers who had just defeated them now worked to ensure their safety and comfort. This was unlike any conquest they had ever seen or heard of. Captain Yang Minji, commanding the human cruiser Busan Rising, coordinated the boarding operations across dozens of Council vessels. Her teams worked with the precision that came from years of training and centuries of military tradition. "All ships report successful boarding," she announced to Admiral Park. "Council vessels are secured. No casualties on either side." President Kim Do-hyun's voice suddenly echoed through every ship in the system, both human and alien. His words reached the ears of thousands of Council personnel who had expected death or slavery after their defeat. "Members of the Galactic Council," he said, his tone firm but not hostile, "your fleet will be escorted safely out of our territory. You will carry a message back to your governments. Humanity offers peace, trade, and cooperation to all species willing to treat us as equals. We seek friendship, not conquest. But we will never bow to threats or intimidation." The news of the Council's defeat spread across the galaxy faster than the ships that carried it. Within days, emergency sessions were being held on hundreds of worlds as the impossible became reality. The mighty Galactic Council, undefeated for millennia, had been crushed by a species they considered primitive. On the water world of Aquatica, the ruling council of the Mare people held an urgent meeting. For centuries they had chafed under council rule but lacked the power to resist. Now for the first time they saw hope. "If the humans can defeat the council," declared Prime Minister Reflar, "perhaps we can be free as well." Similar conversations took place across dozens of worlds. Within weeks, 3 entire species had formally withdrawn from the Galactic Council, declaring their independence. The empire that had seemed eternal was beginning to crumble. Ambassador Ro Sun-woo stood in the newly built Galactic Embassy on Earth's moon, watching through the massive observation windows as ships from 40 different species arrived for humanity's first interspecies cooperation summit. Unlike the Council's forced gatherings, this meeting was voluntary. Species came because they wanted to, not because they were ordered to. "Look at them," he said to his aide, watching the diverse collection of vessels docking at the station. "Some of these civilizations haven't spoken to each other in centuries because the Council kept them separated. Now they're working together." The old system of rule through fear was being replaced by something the galaxy had not seen in thousands of years: cooperation based on mutual respect and shared benefit. Admiral Park watched from the bridge of her flagship as the last Council vessel prepared to jump to hyperspace. General Krothmok's ship had been repaired just enough to make the journey home, carrying with it the knowledge that the galaxy had changed forever. "Admiral," her communications officer reported, "we're receiving messages from 17 different species requesting formal diplomatic contact with Earth." Captain Eugene Huan, now commanding the Seoul Defense Grid from a massive space station built in Earth's orbit, monitored reports from human colonies across dozens of star systems. Trade agreements were being signed. Scientific information was being exchanged freely. For the first time in millennia, the galaxy was learning what it meant to be free. The council had expected humans to kneel when faced with overwhelming force. Instead, they discovered that some species cannot be conquered, only awakened. And when such a species reaches for the stars, they do not just change their own destiny, they change the entire galaxy.